Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have the moon in their second house in their natal chart. The moon connects with our emotions. And so we can have the moon in any of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And that in and of itself will tell us something about the emotional nature. So, for instance, if you have the moon in Leo, you have a dramatic emotional nature. You also have a warm nature, a very affectionate, loving nature. If you have the moon in Aquarius, you're much more detached. And you are coming from a mental place. Even though the moon is emotional, you might intellectualize your emotions. So those are ways that we can kind of tap into what a person's emotional nature is like. In the second house, there is a sub-influence of what the second house represents. The second house is the house of money and possessions. Specifically, it is considered the house of the money that you earn and the money that you possess alone, okay? I believe that we can just broaden it to your money. However you got it, but it's in your ownership. Whereas the opposite house, the 8th house, is shared resources. But we can just look at the second house as your money and your possessions. And the moon in the second house becomes a person who is emotionally connected to money, their money. Does this mean that a person is greedy? I would not say so. It can if the person is fear-based and they are grasping. Actually, greediness, greed is about grasping. Grasping meaning that a person has a desperate quality where they're always, kind of like that, that act of grabbing onto something for dear life. And so that is, to me, what greed is. Maybe one form of it at least. But this is not going to be true for everybody with the moon in the second house. Grasping, because it is fear-based, it doesn't have anything to do with how much money a person has, their net worth, if you will. You can be grasping and have a little money, or you could be a millionaire and be grasping because there still is that underlying fear there. I think that I didn't see this on the website that I obtained the information that I'm going to tell you, which is a website that you should go to if you want to learn more about the different placements in astrology. It's called astrocodex.com, and I highly recommend it. But I believe that if you have the moon in the second house and you have Saturn either in the first or the fourth houses, that you may be somebody who fears being destitute like you were when you were growing up. And the reason for that is that the moon being your emotional nature, is connected to some memories that you have had. Now, in some cases, they may be past life. Memories are not just from this lifetime, and you may not be conscious of some memories. You've heard of the term repressed memories. That is the nature of the 12th house. And the 12th house can be karmic memories. Sometimes repressed memories are coming from other lifetimes. Sometimes they're coming from this lifetime. But in any case, the point is that the moon can mean that you need money to make you feel at peace. I'm reminded by a quote by Ayn Rand, who I would say is a controversial author, and she wrote some very popular books, one called The Fountainhead and one called Atlas Shrugged, and she seems to be the darling of libertarians in the United States who favor, no taxes and all kinds of things that connect with keeping one's money. She was, I'm not going to go too much into her life. I just wanted to quote her, but just to say that she, her family was wealthy in Russia, and they were in Russia during the Russian Revolution, and they lost everything. And so she always had this, I think, this kind of animosity towards the government for stealing her family's wealth. And she had a quote where she said something like that she had a Buddhistic sense of calm, like, being like the Buddha when she had money in the bank, or something to that effect. And the reason I'm quoting her is because I feel like this is how you are if you have the moon in the second house. Like, there's a strong connection between emotional security and financial security with you. And yet, your money may fluctuate because the moon can indicate changeability. So, the irony is that it may, because you have the moon in the second house, you may crave that security, but you also may be the type to have ups and downs with money. And part of this is your spending habits, because with the moon in the second house, you may be very interested in spending money on your home, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and Cancer rules the 4th house of home and family. So it is playing a part in this particular interpretation as well. This is how we interpret these things, is that we're looking at what each element represents astrologically and putting it all together as one unit. And so you may be the type where you don't spend money willy-nilly, but when it comes to your house and when it comes to your family, it's like all over. You're like totally mush when it comes to them. But you can resist spending money in other areas. And your mother may have been like this as well. The moon rules the mother. And so in the second house, she may had some of these traits, and you take after her as a result. Another thing that you may spend money on is cooking. Maybe you have the latest Vitamix. Or I always say Vitamix because they're so expensive. I bought a refurbished one, and I remember like going, oh boy. But you may have the latest gadgets. You may love to cook. You may even have a career in the food industry. So you might be a cook. You might own a restaurant. You might be a caterer. And when it comes to your home, I even wrote here, perhaps you have your dream kitchen in mind, or maybe you have already remodeled your house, your kitchen, to make it perfect. And, sometimes when I used to watch television, I remember watching these celebrities on some of those shows, and they would talk about how when they were remodeling their home, the kitchen was the thing they wanted to remodel because they said that was the center of the home or the heart of the home. And you may really feel that way. You may earn money through real estate. If you're not doing a restaurant or a catering truck, maybe you're selling real estate, or you may work from your home. That may be your office as your home. The home may be where your heart is, for sure. People with this placement can be attached to others as if they are these relationships with these people are possessions, things. This is because your emotions are the moon, plus the second house equals possessions. And so you may view your relationships in this way. And so you can become very attached to these relationships as a result. Also, hoarding can be a problem with people with the moon in the second house. This is because you attach I would say unusually strong emotions to objects that you own, possessions that you own. So what happens is it makes it hard for you to get rid of things because it's almost like getting rid of a relationship. And this is what hoarders are all about. They become excessively attached to inanimate objects. And if anybody ever cared to really examine why somebody would become like this, it's because they are connected emotionally to those objects. If they weren't, they would never keep them in the first place. If Mercury and or Pluto are in difficult aspect, the person could be an obsessive collector of objects. So you know people who have a tendency to have these collections, let's say of Beanie Babies or something like that. But then they become obsessed and they have to have every last one of something. And then maybe they finish one collection and they go on to the next. I have a feeling that there are people who are like that and they had to really control themselves to get themselves not to take it to the next level. And so there's that. And I just thought of this. If you have the sun in Virgo, I'm sorry, if you have the moon in Virgo, this may even be more of a deal, because I know that Virgos like to classify things, and Virgos love the details that come when you have to research sometimes, when you have a desire to have a collection of something. Sometimes you have to research, like, how come I can't buy these, here? And so there could be some kind of a thing, especially if your moon is a sign like Virgo, where you just really love that aspect of maintaining your collection, having everything in order, and that feeds into it as well. Your mother could be a source of your financial support, even as an adult. When the moon is in the second house, the moon can be the mother. And in some cases, if other factors cooperate, if the mother has been a narcissist, she may try to make sure that her adult child is financially dependent. As a matter of fact, that is one of the MOs of narcissists, to disempower their adult children. And this is because they want them to be nearby. They want them to be under their control. And so if this resonates with you, you're going to have to take note of this and make sure not to allow yourself to get sucked into that, because you may have a particular tendency or vulnerability to expect this or allow this in your life, and you have to fight against it. If you don't have a mother doing this, it could be a girlfriend. If you're a man and you have a girlfriend who is, supporting you, then perhaps that is the person who is doing this for you. Some kind of a maternal figure. If it's not a mother, could be an aunt or a grandmother. This was an interesting thing that they mentioned. They said that a full moon in this house could bring a windfall if other aspects support it. So, in other words, if you have the moon in your second house in your natal chart, when the transiting moon comes into that house, that could indicate that you're going to have a windfall, because the moon can increase things. Not to say it will happen every year, because the moon can come into your house once a year. A full moon I'm talking about. But perhaps Jupiter is at a friendly angle, or Venus. Those are two planets that are associated with money as well, and good fortune. And maybe that is the thing that pushes it to the tipping point and makes it more likely that you're going to profit from the full moon. The bottom line is that somebody with the moon in the second house is finding that sense of balance between their outer persona and their inner nature, which the moon might be more associated with. But how does it affect your sense of your own prosperity? Are you apprehensive all the time about your finances? What can you do to not worry about them or not be affected by the changing nature of them? These are questions to ponder. Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. My website is rainamoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.